قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this new episode of Ask Zad. Our first question for tonight is from Suhana. She says, can we buy Quran with illustrations for kids? First of all, we have facts. Among these facts is that the Quran must be respected, must be honored. It is the speech of Allah the Almighty, and hence it has to be totally cared for and looked after in a respectful way. This is why a lot of scholars says you do not write on the pages of the Quran. You do not highlight the wordings of the Quran. You can do that in an external paper without a problem, but with the Quran itself, it has to be respected. Also, we have to understand that teaching children is different than teaching adults, because you are setting the foundation, and whatever they learn in this early age, this will be heavily rooted in their subconscious, in their hearts, in their way of thinking and analyzing. And having said that, there are no specific means of teaching the children, of having them learn what is important in their lives. So it depends on the technique used, and each technique has to be looked into, cross-examined, and then come out with a verdict. So to illustrate some verses of the Quran so that the children would understand them, we have to understand that we cannot draw or illustrate to our children things that are related to al-ghaib, to the unseen. So things that we ourselves don't know the nature or reality of, it is prohibited for us to illustrate and draw such things in order for the children or others to understand. Such as when it talks about rivers that flow underneath their mansions in Jannah. And when we put the picture of rivers, gardens of Eden, and we put jungles and gardens and flowers, and hell, and we put fire and the likes, all of these things are part of the ghaib, which we ourselves cannot imagine, have not seen, and hence drawing them would not be permissible. When we talk about angels and devils, and you write what so many people do, depicting angels with wings and a halo, like the Christians thinks of the angels to be like this, or the devils with a spear with 3 heads and horns and a small beard, and he's red. This is not permissible to put such images in the minds of children or anyone else, because this is not true. Depicting the messengers and prophets of Allah, even if they don't show their faces, because this is something that all Muslim scholars have agreed upon, not to depict messengers and prophets in any shape or form, and other things like that. But if we're talking about a normal tree and you draw a tree, this is okay. There's no problem that we all know what a tree looks like, but we don't know the trees of Jannah, how they look like, so we do not we do not illustrate them, and we do not draw them. So if this is done in a permissible way, there's no problem in that, insha'Allah. Maria or Myra says, what is the concept of temporary marriages in Islam? Muta marriage. Muta marriage is agreed upon Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. It was in the beginning permitted for a certain period of time when there was a great need among the Muslims to have it. Then on the 7th year of Hijrah, the year of Khaybar, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited it, and the ruling of it being permissible was abrogated, and it became prohibited and haram. And the essence for marriage is stability, continuity, to have tranquility, compassion, mercy between the spouses, and also to have children. And if there were a divorce or a fatality or a death, then to have a iddah, the waiting period, and to inherit one another. All of this is not found in temporary marriage known as muta, because it's an agreement, it's a contract between a man and a woman to have sex for a specific period of time in exchange of a specific amount of money. Once the contract is over, there's no need to divorce. Once the time lapses and ends, there's no need for divorce. There's no need for anything. They just split and they move on. Nowadays, this is considered to be another form of fornication or adultery. It's zina. The contract is invalid, and the marriage is invalid. And the children are most likely, if there were children, because usually the agreement is not to have children, are born out of wedlock. And a woman in such a marriage is like a prostitute. She moves from one man to the other because it's a fixed contract, a day or two, a week or two, and then it's ended. Unlike normal marriages, where the couple enter in such an institution with the hope that this continues until one of them dies, till death does them apart. Now, one may argue, then why was it permitted in the beginning? This is a ruling from Allah Azza wa Jal. We have no right to question why was it allowed and then why was it prohibited later on. This is according to Allah's wisdom. At the time, there was a need for it. Allah permitted it. The companions used it. But after a while, it became prohibited once again. And since then till date, the prohibition stands. And this is the vast majority of the opinion of all companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And even those, like Ibn Abbas, who in the beginning thought it was still valid, was taught by Ali ibn Abi Talib and other great companions that this was abrogated. And you did not know about that. And he came back to the opinion of majority, so that it was the consensus of all companions at a particular time that this was abrogated and haram. Now, only the Rafidah practice this. And this is, again, against the belief of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is based on the Quran and on the prophetic Sunnah. And if you go to their leaders and their imams and ask them, would they give their daughters to such marriages, they would fight against that, and they would furiously say, no, this is not permissible for our daughters, for our sisters. But it is permissible for all other types of women, which shows you that this is not an Islamic concept. Shahid says, is it permissible to pray with folded sleeves? What if, while making wudu, your sleeves get wet and you want to fold the sleeves while praying? Is this permissible? The authentic hadith, the Prophet says in it, alayhi salatu wasalam, I was ordered to prostrate on 7 parts of my body and not to fold hair or clothes. So the folding of hair is for someone who has long hair and he collects it in a ponytail, for example. And folding the clothes would be like folding your sleeves, or folding this by putting it on the top. And the reason for that is that people do this so that when they bow and prostrate, it doesn't bother them. The hair doesn't fall down with them. The clothes will not come in their way. So they tend to fold it in such a fashion. Some scholars say that this prohibition is for the prayer itself and outside the prayer, which is not logical, because folding the hair, braiding the hair for men is normal outside of the prayer. The Prophet used to do it, alayhi salam, the companions used to do it, and no one ever said that, why are you folding your hair? Untie it, unless it was for prayer. As for the clothes, it takes the same ruling. As for the women, they're not included in this ruling. This is only for men. Other scholars say, no. The prohibition is directed only for those who pray and fold their clothes or hair for the sake of prayer. So before I start praying, I tend to take care of my headgear and put it on top or put it at the back and tie it so that it would not bother me throughout prayer, or fold my sleeves, etc. And all of this for the sake of prayer is not permissible. Now, some people are sinful in the sense that they wear their trousers below their ankles. And when they want to pray, they know that wearing their trousers under the ankles is haram. So they want to fold it. But then they remember this hadith. So they're in a dilemma. Should I fold it or not? The answer is yes. You should fold it because the way you're wearing it is haram. But you should not limit folding it only to prayer. Rather, you should keep it folded throughout the whole day and night. Because the Prophet said, whatever, alayhi salatu wasalam, whatever goes underneath the ankles is in hellfire. So imagine wearing your trousers 23 hours a day underneath your ankles, and then you don't want to be burnt in hellfire. That wouldn't be a very wise decision to make. Keep it always folded, and there's no problem in folding it for prayer if you don't want to keep it always folded. So coming back to the topic, folding the clothes and the hair for the sake of prayer just before praying, this is not permissible. What I believe personally, and this is my own personal opinion, is that if I work the whole day with my sleeves folded due to hot weather, due to the nature of my work, so I always keep my shirts folded, and it's time for prayer, I'll pray like this, because I did not fold my shirts for the prayer itself, but rather this is how naturally I am wearing my clothes, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Salman says, is it permissible to eat sweets with gelatin that are available in the Western markets? What about the gelatin powder that you get in the supermarkets for making desserts? This issue of gelatin is an issue of dispute. We know that gelatin is made primarily from animals. So if it is halal animals like sheep, cows, camels that were slaughtered in a halal way, we have no problem in that. No one doubts the permissibility of that. The problem is when it is made of dead meat or even made of pork, where the issue comes up, because the meat is najis. So how can we eat it? So the scholars were divided as usual. One say it is haram without any further discussion because of the presence of such haram ingredients. And this is safest opinion of all. The second group of scholars said that we have a concept in Islam that is called istihala, which means roughly to transformation. So a substance that is impure, that is najis, that is haram, if it is transferred totally to a new substance that is not related in its physical or chemical characteristics to the first one, then it becomes halal. And they give an example of a dog that falls in a pit of salt. You know, at some beaches you'll find a pit of salt where seawater collects and it dries, and then there's the salt that remains there. If a dog falls in one, dies, and a few weeks later we come and we find that the dog itself, the body, the hair, the bones, due to the effect of the salt, is no longer existing. It vanished. It turned itself, not by itself, but it was turned into salt. So there's no smell, no color, no remains. Scholars say that the salt itself is halal and it is permissible to consume. How? A dog just died. Yes, but it was transformed into a new substance, which is salt. Likewise, when we get milk from a cow, for example, the origin of milk is blood and whatever is in the guts of the intestines of the cow and things that are not pure. But look what it turned into, milk. No one can say that milk is haram because the origin of the milk is not pure. But now milk itself is a totally different substance. So this group of scholars considered gelatin part of this process because the haram meat undergoes a rigorous process that changes it totally to a new substance. So this is what I feel comfortable with, but definitely the most safest opinion is to avoid it. And if you have alternatives, you are highly recommended to avoid it, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Muhsin says, is it permissible to pray istikhara for others? People in Pakistan go to professional alims who pray istikhara for them and tell them the result in a day or two. Istikhara is something where you yourself seek Allah's guidance over something you want to do. You cannot pray istikhara on behalf of others, as you cannot enter the masjid, for example, with a friend of yours and then tell him, listen, you pray 2 rak'ahs tahiyyatul masjid for yourself and then pray 2 rak'ahs tahiyyatul masjid on my behalf. For me, I'm just going to sit down immediately. This is not applicable because such ibadat, such forms of worship can only be done by the individual himself. He cannot deputize others to pray Sunnatul Fajr on his behalf or ask someone to pray witr tonight because I don't feel like praying, or would you fast next week in Ramadan for me? This is all not possible, not permissible. As for the alims who do this and make money out of it, that's why some are very rich, because they fool people. Imagine if I would charge a dime for every time someone asks me for istikhara. So Sheikh, my daughter is getting married next week. Can you pray istikhara for me? Sure thing. How much? This is haram. This is consuming people's money unlawfully. And this is why these, and correctly described as professional alims. They're like professional wrestlers, professional lawyers, and professional people who embezzle others. No, this is not right. You can charge money for teaching people the Quran. This is halal, as the Prophet said this. You can charge money for selling someone's property and get a commission over that. This is halal. But to make ruqyah, to fast missed days of Ramadan on behalf of others, this is not permissible, and it's an innovation, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah we'll be right back.
محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the book Interactions of the Greatest Leader. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anh narrated that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, for every hardship, disease, worry, distress, harm, and grief that a Muslim faces, and even for every thorn that pricks him, Allah will expiate some of their sins through it. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu said, I entered where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was, and I found him suffering pains of a fever. And I said, O Messenger of Allah, you are suffering severe pains of your fever. And he ﷺ said, yes, I'm suffering as much as 2 men among you would suffer. I said to him, for that reason, will you have 2 rewards? He ﷺ said, yes, it will be as you said. There is not a Muslim that is afflicted with the harm of a thorn or any above that, except that because of it, Allah will expiate their sins, and his sins will fall like leaves fall off a tree.
محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back. Ramiz says, can we take oath on Quran, whether by keeping our hands on it or simply by words? First of all, we cannot swear, we cannot take an oath except by one of Allah's names or attributes, by Allah, by Ar-Rahman, and by in Arabic is wa. So you say Wallahi, Wal-Latif al-Khabir, Wal-Aziz al-Rahim. All of these are okay. And the Quran is the speech of Allah, which is one of his attributes, and hence it is permissible to swear and to take an oath by saying, well, Quran, I didn't do this. Because this is like saying, wa kalam Allah, by the speech of Allah. So this is totally permissible. The issue is placing your hand on the actual Quran. Is this permissible or not? Difference of opinion among scholars. Some say that if the Muslim ruler, be it the judge or someone else, who's in charge of solving disputes between people, and he asks one of the defendants, one of the clients, one of those coming to his court over a dispute, he asks him to place his hand on the mushaf so that he emphasizes the importance and the gravity and the seriousness of the situation. Some scholars say that this is permissible. Why? Because the origin of this goes back to the times of the companions. May Allah be pleased with them. For example, Uthman ibn Affan used to ask individuals, not only that, he used to ask companions who came when there was a dispute between one another, and he wanted one of them to swear that he did not take the money, for example. He would say, go to the mimbar, to the pulpit of the Prophet ﷺ, and swear there. Because swearing here is different than swearing next to the pulpit of the Prophet ﷺ. Swearing here that I didn't take the money is different when I swear next to the black stone, Hajar al-Aswad, or Maqam Ibrahim, or the Multazam of Kaaba. Whoa, this is a very serious thing. Maybe I'd have second thoughts if I were to lie, that yeah, I could lie here, but there Allah Azza wa Jal would definitely annihilate me. So this has an origin, whether that some places are glorified more or sometimes are sought after, such as swearing after Asr prayer, as mentioned in the Quran and some hadiths as well. So those scholars who say that placing your hand on the Quran and swearing is permissible when the imam, when the Muslim ruler, when the judge deems it obligatory to emphasize that you're not lying. Other scholars say, no, this is not right. There was a copy of the Quran at the time of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, and all the great companions of the Prophet ﷺ, may Allah be pleased with them, and the Tabi'een, and never ever we've seen anyone asking a defendant to place his hand over the Mus'haf. Actually, this may count as an insult to the Quran when it is used for such purposes like this, rather than being recited, read, and acted upon. So the most authentic opinion is that this is an innovation. This is what the Christians may do when they ask you to place your hand on the Bible, but the Muslims should not imitate this or do this because it is not part of our religion, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Abdullah says, my mom was indoor and I was sitting outside, and she told me if anyone comes and asks about her, I should say she's not in the house. What should I do? Because it seems like lying. Abdullah, it does not seem like lying at all. It is lying. See, lying is stating something that is not true. So you're not being truthful when you say, my mom is not in the house. This is a blatant lie. So what to do? First of all, you have to remind your mom with Allah Azza wa Jal by telling her, Mom, I love you, but you know that lying is a major sin and we should not, as Muslims, lie. Running away from your problems does not solve them. You have to face your problems. Of course, you're not going to lecture your mom or you get a slap on your face. This is not what I meant, but you should try to remind her of Allah. Secondly, we have something that is called ma'arid. And ma'arid is something ambiguous that can have double meaning. And this saves you from lying by not directly stating a lie. So the Prophet, for example, alayhi salatu wasalam, in one of his expeditions, met a man and he asked him for some information about the enemy's army. So the man said, no, I will not tell you until you tell me where from you are. So the Prophet said, I'll tell you, but you tell me first. So the man gave the information to the Prophet ﷺ, which helped him figure out the number of the enemy army. So he figured out by the number of camels they slaughter, how many people there were. So the man said, okay, now you tell me, where are you from? The Prophet ﷺ was at war. And at war, you cannot be giving your information for free. And if he tells the man that we are from Medina, the man might go directly to the enemy army and say, I met the army you're looking to fight, or you're running from, or you're pursuing, whatever. So the Prophet had to give an ambiguous answer without lying. So the Prophet said, we are from water. And he left. So the man was asking for more. What water? Water usually means a tribe that lives near a water well or a source of water that they're known by it. Water of this village, water of that area, water of that city. So the man says, which water? And the Prophet did not answer, because he already gave him an answer where he was coming from. The Prophet meant water meaning semen. Every human being is created from water, from a drop of semen. And this is what the Prophet meant, alayhi salatu wasalam, but the man understood it differently. This is called ma'arid. And the Prophet had told us that in using ma'arid, you can easily avoid lying. So, if I were in your shoes, most likely my foot is bigger than yours, so I'm going to find difficulty putting them on. If someone asks me while I'm at the terrace of the house, where's your mom? So I would not say, she's not home. I would say, she's not here. And this would give the questioner the idea that she's not home. But actually, I'm meant to say that she's not here in the terrace with me. So this is one way of escaping lying. But to say she's not home when she is home, she's not inside when she's inside, this is clearly a lie, and this is not permissible, and Allah knows best. Ahsan says, is the hadith, there is no Muslim who dies on the day of Friday or the night of Friday, but Allah will protect him from the trial of the grave, from fitnat al-grave? The answer is yes, this is a Hasan hadith. It was authenticated by many scholars, and the hadith itself is a favor and a blessing from Allah Azza wa Jal. It is true that some scholars rejected this hadith and said that it is illogical that Allah Azza wa Jal gives such a favor and blessing, such a reward to a person who dies on a particular day, which that person did not work hard to earn this. So where is the wisdom? And again, this is something that we do not accept, in the sense that we do not logic things that are from the Quran and Sunnah. I could not come and say, whoever dies while his last statement is La ilaha illallah will enter Jannah. So one cannot object to this and say, yes, but this is not logical. The guy was a kafir all of his life, and at the last moment he said La ilaha illallah and he enters Jannah. This is not logical. This is not fair. A'udhu billah. No Muslim would argue like this or object to such a ruling like this, because this is in Allah's hands. Jannah is for Allah, from Allah. The torment of the grave is a punishment from Allah. If He wills to exempt someone from it, who dares and object to that? What is the logic of it? Only Allah knows. Do we know the logic for Fajr being 2 rak'ah, Maghrib being 3 rak'ah, and the rest of the prayers being 4 rak'ahs? We don't. So do we hesitate to offer them, or do we refrain even from offering them until we find the logic behind that? Definitely not. So the hadith is authentic, and it is one of the signs of a good ending. So if a person dies on a Friday, this is a sign of a good ending, inshaAllah, because Allah exempted him from the torment of the grave. But this does not mean that he would not be accountable for all of his sins on the Day of Judgment. And also, this does not mean at all that if a disbeliever dies on a Friday, he will be exempted from the torment of the grave. This is only for Muslims, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Barviz says, do we have to be in shoes or sandals below the ankle or barefoot when making tawaf or sa'i for umrah, what are the do's and don'ts of ihram? Well, the do's and don'ts of ihram are long. So I don't have time to explain to you that, first of all, the Prophet said for a man that you should not wear, while in the state of ihram, any shirts, trousers, turbans, baranis, hoodies, or shoes. So a shoe that covers your entire foot is prohibited to be worn during ihram for men. And if you wear sandals or flip-flops, slippers, this is totally permissible. The dispute is if you wear something that covers the entire foot with the exception of your heel and ankles. Like, I think they call it Crocs, something like that, I don't know. So what's the ruling on that? It's an issue of dispute. The most authentic opinion is, as long as you are unable to wipe in wudu, because it exposes the back of your foot, your heel, your ankles, in this case it is permissible to wear them, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Among the things that are prohibited in ihram is to wear perfumes. Also, some scholars included clipping the nail. It is not permissible to shave or to cut short the hair of your body, whether it's the hair of the head, the beard, and pubic hair, or the armpit hair, etc. It is not permissible to get engaged, get married, propose. It is not permissible to hunt game, among other things, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. A sister says, I want to ask, if someone urinates and then flushes and then starts to clean their private parts, there is a chance the water inside the toilet touches them while cleaning. Does that have any impact on your purity? What if we had not flushed? A lot of these issues, cleansing yourself, washing yourself after urinating, defecating, a lot of these issues are a fertile ground for shaitan to mess up with your mind. The devil comes and it's his playground to mess up with you. So what to do? First of all, today's toilet seats are not designed in a way that could be helpful to ensure that nothing comes back to you. But generally speaking, we have guidelines. We have rules in Islam. The default, that everything is pure until proving otherwise. So if you flush, the water that remains inside is clean, is pure. There's no najasa. All the impurities have gone down the drain. So this is pure. What about if I did not flush? I'm using a lot of water to wash myself, and I sometimes feel that there might have been some splashes. Might have. As long as it is might have, this means that the possibility that it might not have. So it's a 50-50. Whenever there's doubt, always implement the rule of certainty. What is certain? That this is pure, that this is pure, that this is pure. Unless proven otherwise. What do you mean proven otherwise? There's a brown stain on my thobe. Yeah, but is it najasa or is it oud and perfume? Well, I don't know. You don't know, it's pure. It might be, as long as it's not 100% certain that it is a najasa, it is pure. Take a smell. Wow, this stinks. This is najasa, because now you are certain because of one of the characteristics, which is the smell of a najasa. End of story. So if you are the OCD type, a person with obsessive compulsive disorder, and everything around you you feel is impure, in this case, apply the rule of certainty. But if you're not, you're a normal person and usually you never get these thoughts, and once every blue moon you have a strong feeling that you might have splashed najasa back to you. Well, are you sure that the water itself is najis? If it was flushed, then it's not najis. And whenever you clean yourself and wash your private part, the amount of water that goes in with the amount of water in the toilet seat makes the najasa dissolve and not apparent. So the splashes are pure. But if you're doubtful, just wash it. Wash whatever area in your body you feel that water might have spoiled it or soiled it or splashed najasa onto it, and this is does the job. But the default is no, it is pure, and don't work your mind a lot on this. Abdul Rahman says, we are told to compete in righteousness, but does not that go against ikhlas, sincerity? Should you be doing things for Allah's sake only and not for surpassing others in show off? How do we reconcile? Well, there's a very thin line, Abu Abdul Rahman. There's a very thin line between competing with others plus showing off and sincerity. If you know that what you're doing is for the sake of Allah and you're competing not to win, but rather to reach Allah first and to please Allah first, and you're not showing off so that people would praise you, then there's no contradiction. Umar ibn Khattab once said to himself, today I will surpass Abu Bakr in charity, because every time he comes first. So today I'm going to do something for the sake of Allah, see, not for the sake of competing, but rather for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he presented the Prophet with some wealth. So the Prophet ﷺ prayed for him. May Allah bless your health and wealth. What did you leave for your family? So Umar said, exactly equal to it. Meaning, I brought to you, O Prophet of Allah, 50% of my entire wealth. So the Prophet accepted it. Umar sat. After a while, Abu Bakr came with a bundle of wealth and he put it in front of the Prophet ﷺ and said, this is for Allah and His Messenger. So the Prophet prayed for him as well and asked, O Abu Bakr, what did you leave for your family? And Abu Bakr said, I left for them Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Meaning that this is 100%. This is my entire wealth. I'm giving it all for the sake of Allah. When Umar saw this, he said, by Allah, I'll never compete with you, Abu Bakr, again. It's not feasible. I can't catch up with you. So these two were not competing to show off. Definitely. They were among the most sincere of Allah's servants. But they were doing what they're doing for the sake of Allah alone. And if they saw others exceeding them, they would compete with them to please Allah, not to surpass them or to overtake them for the sake of a race or a competition, but rather for the sake of reaching Allah Azza wa Jal first. So there's no problem. Now, when would there be a problem? This is when you do what you do just to show people that, listen, I did this, I did that, like Ibn al-Jawzi. And I've said this so many times, wrote in his beautiful book, Sayyid al-Khatar, that I went into a masjid in Al-Kufa, in Iraq, with a friend of mine before the adhan of Fajr. And we saw a man praying night prayer, tahajjud, next to a candle, to a lantern, whatever. So I said to my friend, look at his prayer. MashaAllah, how beautiful it is. And apparently the man heard me. So he wrapped up his prayer and came to us and said, and if you like my prayer, what would you say if you knew that I've been fasting for the past 20 years? Ibn al-Jawzi says, look at this fool. For the sake of showing off, he erased all the good deeds that he had done for 20 years because he did it to impress people, not for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. So if you know that you're competing so that people would say you're the best in reciting the Quran or in fasting, voluntary fasts, or in prayers, and not for the sake of Allah, you should refrain. But if not, and you know that this guy memorizes the whole Quran and you only memorize 25 juz', so you compete internally so that you would reach 30 juz' and be like him, this is a positive thing to do, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. This is all the time we have for today's program. Until we meet next time, I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.